Hey everyone! Welcome to my eCourse, How to Drive Your Elementary Counseling Program Like a Boss. I am your host, Jessica, from simplyimperfectcounselor.com. I'm so excited to meet you all, and I'm so glad that you're here. So, who exactly should be here? Well, if you're already a school counselor, this could be extremely useful and helpful. Some of these things you may have already heard, but you may need a refresher on how to use them or implement them into your program. If you're a counseling student, this could be helpful to guide you into planning your internship. So, what am I going to learn by listening? Today we're going to talk about 5 surefire ways to run your counseling program. Number 1, we're going to talk about calendaring. And then we'll talk about doing a time task analysis, or some of you may know it as a TTA. Conducting a needs assessment is also super important. Using data to drive your program. And starting an advisory committee, why it's important and why you should have one. But first, a little about me. I am an elementary counselor in a rural school district in Missouri. I am the only counselor to about 500 students in my building. Yeah, I know, right? Super busy. Anyway, I have over 10 years experience in education. I started my career by becoming a first grade teacher. I absolutely loved being a teacher, but during that time I realized I enjoyed helping the families and becoming a resource for others. So with that thought, I got my master's in elementary school counseling, and voila, here I am. Now, I want to become a resource for not only my school families, but to my counseling friends as well. That's why I created simplyimperfectcounselor.com. Enough about me. Let's get started. Tip number 1, calendaring. This task can be very time-consuming, especially for elementary counselors because we go into the classrooms so often. However, putting it all on paper is a way for you to advocate for what you do. Even though things change throughout the week for me, I like to schedule my individual student and my small group time on my calendar. I also like to write down time I might be spending on curriculum planning or meetings, etc. So on the side of my calendar, I have all of my standards that we'll be covering for the month. I share all of this with my teachers, with stakeholders, with administration, families, because I don't want teachers thinking my job is mysterious. I want to advocate and let them know exactly what I do. My yearly calendar is basically a checklist with a list of to-dos for each month. I like to stay on track by making sure my checklist is complete by the end of each month. My curriculum calendar has all my standards and ASCA mindsets and behaviors worked right into my lessons. For example, I do bi-weekly lessons in each classroom, so that puts me at 2 lessons per month in each one. I write the lessons in my calendar and in order that I want to teach them. I also write all the standards on sticky notes and put them into my calendar where they fit with each lesson. My goal here is to make sure that all the sticky notes or standards are placed inside my calendar. Of course, this system may not be a good fit for you. I am totally a hands-on, list, note-taken person, so I like to physically pick up my sticky note and put it in my calendar. Now, you may be an online person where you want to use the program Scuda or an Excel sheet or even Google Calendar. So find the fit that's best for you. The number 1 tip here is calendaring. So make sure you're organized. Make sure you share it with people. Advocate for your program. Don't be mysterious. Let them know exactly what you do. Tip number 2, doing a time task analysis. Some of you might be thinking, what is this? A time task analysis is simply writing down everything you do for the day and sorting those activities into 5 groups: responsive services, system support, counseling curriculum, individual student planning, and non-counseling tasks. I used to only do about 5 of these a semester, but I quickly realized I was not getting the data I needed. What I was getting was an inaccurate snapshot of data that I couldn't do anything with. In other words, it was a waste of my time. And if you're like me, you don't have time to waste. After sacrificing a year of that, I now know for best results, do a TTA daily. Wait, don't turn off the computer, just hear me out. You get the best results doing it daily. Who has the time for that? Well, I didn't either until I came up with the Simply Perfect Planner with a built-in TTA tracker for every single day. Here is a snippet of my planner. Of course, the real one has a larger schedule with much more time slots. However, this is just my example. I use it to write out everything I do for the week. I assign every activity to one of the 5 TTA codes we talked about earlier. Then, with some simple math, you get valuable and usable data for the entire year. Tip number 3, conduct a needs assessment. What are your parents, teachers, and students needing? What is the most important to them? What do they feel needs to be taught? Sending out a quick survey will get information back into your hands to help drive your program. Plan your lessons and parent nights based on your results. One way to do this is the old-fashioned paper pencil way. But nowadays, with all the technology we have, getting those surveys out and grading them becomes a lot less stressful. You can do this via Google Forms and send the surveys out in an email to parents, teachers, and even students. The results come back in a beautiful graph, totally pain-free. Tip number 4, use data to drive your program. It's time to let go of what you want to do and let your data take control. If you take time to listen, data will speak and guide you to a successful year. You collect numerous amounts of data, such as school-wide, classroom lesson, small group, individual student, and needs assessment data. Take time to write down your results, even if you don't use the information right away. At least you'll have it to compare with something later on. Some examples of data that you can collect are attendance initiatives, academic interventions, pre- and post-assessments, surveys, individual observational notes, grades, and individual attendance. So use this data and decide where you want it to take you and how you want to drive your program. What initiatives can you do to make your program better? Tip number 5, start an advisory council. I know what you're thinking. Why in the world would I want to do that? Well, believe it or not, an advisory council can benefit your program in many ways. For starters, they can give you honest feedback from an outsider's perspective. In order for your program to grow, you're going to need feedback. What works? What doesn't? How can things be different? Then get together with other counselors in your district and make a plan to implement these changes. Advisory councils look different in every building and district. However, you want stakeholders to be from different groups to give you different views and opinions. For example, parents, teachers, business owners, administrators, and even students can give you insight for things that you might not think of. Try to meet at least twice a year. Meetings can also look different because once you try to set up an in-person meeting, they may not always work. Online meetings and conference calls are great because it draws members in who otherwise have a very packed schedule. This is a time to share your ideas and your calendars. Let them know what great things you do and what's in store for kids at your school. Let's recap what we've learned. Calendaring, important to share. TTAs, how to get that done on a daily basis. Needs assessment and a data-driven program. We've also talked about the importance of starting an advisory council. So how do I get this started today? First of all, you can download my free yearly checklist from your email. You can also take time to check out the resources from this eCourse on my TPT store. Thank you all so much for joining me. Remember, advocate for what you do and decide where you want to take your program. After all, you are the one driving. Thanks. Bye.